In our national lead, the suspect in the University of Idaho student killings is scheduled to be in court tomorrow in Pennsylvania, where he is expected to not fight efforts to bring him back to Idaho to face 4 murder charges. Today, CNN's Jean Casarez spoke with the public defender assigned to the case in Monroe County, Pennsylvania.
The man who police say killed 4 college students, then weeks later drove cross-country tracked by police, will go back to Idaho to face charges.
Detectives arrested 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohlberger,
Ethan Chapin, Zaina Kernoodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves were stabbed to death November 13th in this Moscow, Idaho home.
This was a very complex and extensive case.
DNA was recovered at the crime scene. A source with knowledge of the investigation tells CNN the suspect was identified through genetic genealogy, a process where DNA from an investigation is compared to a public database, potentially leading to a family member of a suspect. Kohlberger's lawyer says his father flew to Washington State to bring him to Northeast Pennsylvania for the holidays.
His father actually went out there and they drove home together.
They drove his white Hyundai Elantra. A car matching that description was in the immediate area of the killings, police said. CNN confirmed they stopped at a repair shop in Pennsylvania where some work was done on the vehicle.
I believe he arrived somewhere around the 17th of December.
Jason Labar, the chief public defender from Monroe County, Pennsylvania, is representing Kohlberger until he is extradited. A law enforcement source says the FBI watched him for 4 days before he was arrested.
The FBI, local police, Idaho state troopers were at their house at approximately 3 a.m. knocking on the door and announcing themselves to enter.
Kohlberger graduated in May from DeSales University in Pennsylvania with a master's in criminal justice and was pursuing a doctorate at Washington State University, only about 7 miles away from the University of Idaho. He has to appreciate the seriousness of what is happening right now.
Oh, absolutely. He is very intelligent. In my hour conversation with him, that comes off. I can tell that. And he understands where we are right now.
While in college at DeSales, Kohlberger asked ex-cons to participate in a study. This study seeks to understand the story behind your most recent criminal offense, with emphasis on your thoughts and feelings throughout your experience, he wrote on an online message board.
This person that had been, kind of grading my papers was, allegedly this horrible murderer.
Kohlberger was working as a teaching assistant in Washington, and one student claims his demeanor and his strict grading changed after the murders.
He started grading everybody just 100s, and now obviously he seems like he was probably pretty preoccupied.
For victims' families, this arrest is a step toward closure and a chance to see Kohlberger in court.
It's a little bit of hope. Things are moving in the right direction. There was a lot of time of not knowing. We're going to definitely look this guy and look him in his eyes. He's going to have to deal with this.
And the extradition proceeding will take place right here in northeastern Pennsylvania tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern time. And after that, the authorities will get him back to Idaho, where we very shortly thereafter will have his initial appearance to face those 4 felony counts of first-degree murder. And the chief public defender here in northeastern Pennsylvania did tell me that he does believe in Idaho, which has the death penalty, that this quite possibly could be a capital case. Jake?
All right, Jean Casarez in Monroe County, Pennsylvania. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Former Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis joins us now. Commissioner Davis, sources tell CNN that authorities used a public DNA database to find potential matches between DNA found at the murder scene and then the potential family members, and that led to the suspect. Hypothetically, how would that work? Has that happened before?
Hi, Jake. Yes, it has, and it's being used more and more often. But you have to remember that this is not a definitive test. That will give you sometimes a number of suspects, dozens, maybe hundreds, that you have to start to filter through. And what you're looking for after you get that initial list is people who have some proximity to the crime or some motivation. If his name popped and he was in the area, he drove an Elantra, those are obviously indicators that would have the FBI concentrating on him. And then in the past, when we've run into situations like this, we would attempt to get a direct sample of DNA from the suspect. So those surveillance teams may have been doing more than just watching him. They may have been looking for discarded water bottles or other things that would produce a sample that they could check to be certain that it was in fact him.
And not every one of these genetic databases shares information willingly with law enforcement. I use Ancestry.com. I don't think they willingly share with law enforcement. Others do. How does that work?
I do too, and I think I think that information is accurate. It all depends on the system that you're putting your DNA into, whether or not they tell you that they're going to share it, and whether you sign a release for it. And in some cases, when you look at that release, it might not tell you directly, and then you're exposing your not only yourself but your family to a review by public authorities.
We learned over the weekend that the suspect and his father drove across the country after the killings, supposedly in this Hyundai Elantra that was possibly seen at the site of the crime scene. What would you want to ask his father if you had an opportunity to?
Well, I would certainly want to ask if there were any indications that he was feeling stressed or disoriented or not paying attention to things. All of those would be indicators. He may have confessed. Sometimes people in this situation, when they feel safe with a loved one, will start to talk about it. I'm not saying that happened in this particular case, but those are things that they're going to ask the father. And also, was there anything in the car that may be helpful? Trace evidence is a huge issue in a case like this. So anything that was out of the ordinary would be of great interest to the investigators.